Good evening. I'm Chair Nathan Sticks, calling to order the Newcastle Community Activities Commission meeting of July 10th, 2024. Time is 6 p.m. This public meeting is being recorded, broadcast live, and may be viewed later on the city's YouTube channel. If everyone would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Amy, if you please do the roll call.
Sorry about that. I turned off the master mic. All right. Commissioner Forsberg. Present. Commissioner Van Atta.
Present.
Commissioner Lee.
Present.
Commissioner D'Souza.
Present.
Commissioner Kretzinger.
Present.
Vice Chair Flash.
I am here.
Chair Sticks.
I am here too. Thank you.
All present and accounted for, Chair.
Okay. First thing on our agenda tonight is the agenda approval. So is there any objection to approval of tonight's agenda as presented? If not, please show the final agenda approved as presented. And approval of the minutes. So is there any objection to approval of the minutes from our June 12th meeting as presented? Terrific. So please show the minutes approved as presented. Next, we will have public comment. So is there anybody in the audience? Mayor Clark.
Thank you, Chair Sticks. Thank you all. I just came today because I wanted to thank you all for the fireworks celebration. I don't know the distribution of responsibility, but it was a very good event, and I'm very appreciative, especially appreciative to Amy. I got off a plane and unpacked and rushed over, and she had everything ready. I didn't need to do a thing, and I really appreciate that. So, and I appreciate all the, I know you're putting a lot of efforts, I've mentioned it before, into the rest of the summer events. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the concerts and the arts show next weekend, and Newcastle Days. I'm excited to see what you guys have planned. So whatever I can do to help, obviously, and the council, please let me know. Please let us know. Thank you. Really sincerely from my, I really mean you guys do a great job for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Carol Simpson. I live in the Vineyards neighborhood in Newcastle. And I also would like to thank you for a very, very well-attended 4th of July independence of our country celebration, and also some fireworks. I have some concerns about that, though. I look at that and maybe we think it's a great success. There was a lot of people there. I worry about the impact to our park, our city jewel, our primary park in our city. I look at that as a public safety concern. As an architect, we look at buildings and places where people gather and how they're safe, and how many people are there and how do they get out. So when you look at the park and you think that maybe what if there's a catastrophe? What if the fireworks go sideways? What if there's a shooter? What if there's something horrible? How do we safely get everybody out of that park? Where are the exits? Everybody remembers where they walked in, either 129th, not most likely, but 84th off of Coal Creek Parkway and the Olympus neighborhood. And parking. It was all the way up the hill to almost to my door, and I'm not sure how far it went up 129th the other way. So ask yourselves, how big is a big event that you want to host there? How many people is comfortable to you? Do we really want everybody from the region coming to this event, or do we really want to focus on Newcastle and maybe our surrounding neighborhoods when we do advertising? How big is safe and how big is comfortable, and how many can the park support and the grass survive the trees and plants, parking, the neighborhood impacts? Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Amy, do we have any public comments online? No? Okay. Next on our agenda, commissioner comments and celebrations. Commissioners, does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
I almost always have something to say. I was pleasantly surprised at just how many people were at the fireworks event, and I thought it went so well. And so I was just really happy to see so many people and get out there and get to be part of that. And I'm really excited for concerts in the park to start. It's a fun way to see each other and hear some music and be outdoors while the weather's nice. So I hope to see people next Wednesday in the park for Boogie Boulevard. That's it from me for this week. Oh, wait, no, it's not. Before our next meeting, National Night Out. I will be at Donegal Park on that night with my neighborhood association, and I hope you to see everybody there too. Thanks.
I would like to also comment how much fun and how great the 4th of, the July 6th event was. It was great, lots of people, it was fun, it was great seeing neighbors, people that I've known for 30 plus years, and it was a great show. And thank you everybody for their contributions.
Any other comments? I would like to officially welcome Brendan Hutchins to the city, our new Parks and Trail Planner. So welcome, Brendan. We look forward to collaborating with you and supporting you in your new job and whatever we can do to help. And secondly, I want to give Amy just a huge pat on the back for all the planning, all the work you did. I watched you get that entire thing set up with Connor and his crew and the vendors and just everything that you did. And you were always so calm and collected, even though inside I'm sure you were like on high boil, but you did a great job and you made us all very proud. So nice work. Okay. So let's go into Agenda 7, reports, and we'll start with events and recreation. Amy.
And for the benefit of those in the audience, I will be summarizing all of what has been handed out to the commissioners, and this will be included in the next council meeting agenda packet. Most of what I have to report on this evening, we're actually discussing as part of agenda items under general business, but I did want to highlight for you a few things. So far, the Fireworks on the Lake event on Saturday evening has received overwhelmingly positive reviews. Staff have already debriefed on ways to improve the event, specifically how to adjust to accommodate the larger crowd. It was definitely larger than had been even the year prior. And so public safety is an important thing we need to focus on, crowd management, lighting, managing traffic flow. So we already have debriefed and come up with ideas on how we can better execute that next year. I would like to thank our food vendors, Community Booze, and Mayor Clark for their participation, with a very special acknowledgement to Alpha Pyrotechnics, who provided our fireworks show, and AT Productions, who does our sound team. I also neglected to thank Soul Siren, our band, who were very happy to have Firework as their finale. An extra special shout out to our Bellevue Fire Department, Newcastle Police Department, our Burien, Maple Valley, and CTEC law enforcement explorers, and especially to our City Public Works crew. There's a lot of work that goes in the week of that event to make sure that it happens, a lot of behind the scenes things. And they were working in that heat and doing it cheerfully. Just an outstanding job by our crew from start to finish. Thank you also to the commissioners who staffed the city booth. That was a huge help in terms of freeing up the staff to be able to be in the crowd, managing the trash, just managing the vendors. That was so very helpful, so thank you. The concerts in the park begin on Wednesday, July 17th. The Coal Creek Banner Parkway is going up any day now. We're waiting on King County crews to come out and get that up. The food will open at 6 p.m. with the band on stage from 7 to 8:30 p.m. July 17th is Boogie Boulevard, and our food vendors include Tasty's Tent, El Tagine Truck, and Pudding Cakes and Po' Boys Tent. They also do lemonade. July 24th, we have Between Two Gregs with Tasties again. We have OMG Heroes Truck and Pumpkin Tie Truck. July 31st, we have Stage 1 returning this year. Tasties again will serve. Cara's Kitchen will return from our fireworks event, and Tacos Panachos Truck. And then finally, on August 7th, the Pioneer Squares are performing along with Tasties. Cascadia Pizza Truck. So we do finally have a pizza truck, just not at Newcastle Days. And my French, even though I lived in Montreal, is horrible, but delicieux. Thank you. Sweet and Savory Crepes Truck is coming. And then finally, under events, I'd like to mention that Newcastle Days planning continues, and we will discuss that in more detail with under 8.4. And just a couple of highlights from our recreational programming. Skyhot Sports programming has returned to Lake Bourne Park this summer. Summer camps are ongoing, and registration is still open for camps starting July 15th. That's this coming Monday, and later through the summer. And then just to remind you that the next issue of the volunteer newsletter goes out on July 19th. That's next Friday. So if any of your community groups have any volunteer opportunities that they would like to see included, please send them my way before then. Questions about my report? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And now we'll go through the different community groups, and we'll start with Mr. Flash, Newcastle Arts Council.
Yeah, thank you. So as usual, we have a packed schedule of events that we've done and events coming up. We had a fundraiser, Jersey Mike's, so thank you for local business supporting our organization and those that went there to enjoy the food and again also support our organization. We have another fundraiser at Frosty Barrel coming up on July 18th, and we're going to be doing an art project from 6 to 8 there. So if you want to come on by and enjoy some ice cream and participate in an art project, everybody's welcome to come on by. July 13th, there's a concert in the park with Gretchen Yanover, who plays an awesome electric cello, who we've had do a concert here in Newcastle several times in the past. As the mayor mentioned, July 20th is our art fair at the Commons. If anybody's willing to volunteer for a couple hours during that day, we're still looking for volunteers for various time slots during the day, so let me know or go out to our website at newcastlewaarts.org and you can sign up there. And then we are accepting entries for our fall art exhibition, so that entries are due by July 14th, and that'll be on display at the Newcastle Library during the month of September. And we have an opening night on September 4th. We collected bottle caps and are about ready to start hopefully putting together a new mural for Lake Bourne Park to replace the old one that's there. So we're working on it, getting a date to do that, and we'll be coordinating that. And then just a reminder that we have our little art gallery still available at City Hall, right in front of the building. And so please come by, contribute, and take art and enjoy what is there. And that's everything going on.
Thank you, Ed. Christian Historical Society and Chamber of Commerce.
On the 19th, the Chamber is having their luncheon, and this month, the speakers will be City Manager Pingle and Newcastle Police Chief Kajihiro. Anyone interested in hearing about the state of the city in terms of businesses and public safety would be well served to attend that luncheon. Again, that's on the 19th. And the Historical Society, this is kind of a quiet time for them, but they will have a booth at the art fair. And the Historical Society president told me he thinks that they will have a couple of new exhibits. They will have their books for sale as they normally do, and it's also a great opportunity to sign up to volunteer or find ways to get involved with the Newcastle Historical Society, because I know that they could use help all the time, because they are the ones that make sure that the cemetery looks and stays the way it is and don't do all that work. So yeah, check them out at the arts fair on the 20th.
Thank you, Christian. Allison, Newcastle Trails.
Nothing from Trails at this time.
Thank you, Allison. Shally, anything with the YMCA?
Yes. Okay, so on July 1st, the Y did host their gingerbread beach house craft. They said about a dozen families attended. There is nothing new, no new events from last month, but they are working on their fall festival, which they are reimagining what that would look like, because they had 750 plus people last year. So they will give us more details on what that's going to look like in August. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Kim, anything going on at Aegis? No? Okay. And Newcastle Library, Friends of the Library, Connie.
Yes. So the Newcastle Library has quite a few very exciting events coming up throughout the rest of the summer. So I would encourage anyone who's interested to take a look at their website for the full list of events. But I'll highlight a couple here this evening that are taking place between now and our next CAC meeting. So this Friday, July 12th, from 2 to 3 p.m., they have a Kamishibai performance, which is Japanese street theater and storytelling. It's a form of Japanese art that dates back to the 8th century and is a precursor to Japanese anime, and that is open to all ages, again, this Friday. And then on Saturday, August 3rd, from 11:30 to 1:30, there's a Young Entrepreneurs Workshop, which is a business creation adventure for aspiring innovators. This one is for kids ages 8 to 13. They can join for a creative writing, debating, and entrepreneurship workshop with instructor Priyanka Raha from PopSmart Kids Academy. And that one is sponsored by the Friends of the Newcastle Library. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Connie. Just as a reminder, please send me your recaps if you had something to share tonight via email to me tonight. That would be great, so I can recap for council. Okay, first thing under general business is the Hemstra Development Park discussion. Brendan.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is my first meeting in the chambers here, so I appreciate you all and bearing with me if I do anything silly, like with my mic or something. But yeah, before I kick off any of the heap stress stuff, I wanted to do a quick introduction of myself, and then if you don't mind, just quick introductions from each of you so I can get to know a little bit more about each of you would be great. Yeah, so my name is Brendan Hutchins. I grew up in Sammamish, so local boy. Went to Bellevue College for a little bit. Got tired of doing that. Felt like I needed to do something new, and went to. I joined the Navy, so I was in the Navy for 6 years as a crew chief and rescue swimmer. And then while I was in the Navy, I knew I wanted to get into the built environment. Came out of the Navy, went to UW, finished my degree in urban planning, wrapped that up in 2021. And then I went and worked for a large civil contractor named Skanska. We were doing the light rail extension from Shoreline up to Linwood. So big project there, wrapped that project up, and then I had a child in December, our first child. So after that, they just moved me on to a new project. So I was working up on 405 doing fish passage work with Skanska again for a handful of months. And then priorities changed with the little kid, and also wanted to follow kind of the passion I had in urban planning and following what I originally set out to do with my degree. And now I'm here at Newcastle, so excited to be working with you guys, and always willing to hear you guys out on anything that you have. Want to work collaboratively with each of you, and expect to have a really great partnership going forward. But that's me in a nutshell, if you guys don't mind. Just so I can get to know you a little bit better, it'd be great if we could just do some quick introductions from each of you as well.
Christian, why don't we start with you?
Hi, I'm Christian. Obviously I live here in Newcastle. I have 2 daughters, and they are 9.5 and 6, and they love it here. And part of what they love about here is all the parks and trails. So I think it was last year that they came to a city council meeting and made public comment in support of fixing the boardwalk through one of the parks. Well, one of them made public comment, and one of them, the younger one, thought she wanted to, but as soon as she actually stood up there, she was like, just kidding. So, yeah, that, and I went to the University of Oregon. Go Ducks! And graduated with a degree in business administration, and later I went back and got a post-bac certificate in accounting. I don't know, what am I missing? I think that's it.
I'm Shali D'Souza. I've been in Newcastle for 11 years. Those are my 2 kids over there, 9.5 and 12. And I welcome. Your background sounds amazing, so we're so excited to have you. I went to LSU. My degree's in construction management. And yeah, looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
My name's Allison Lee. Welcome. As we chatted a little bit before, I am a almost 35-year resident of my home. All of 30 of those, almost 30 of those in Newcastle, the rest in King County. So we've been here for a good while. We moved into our neighborhood over here in Olympus before the park was even there. So when I look back at that, it's really kind of amazing to see how much the city's grown. Both of my adult children went to Renton schools here. It's been a great place for us to be. The city has grown. The area has grown exponentially, but it's been a great place to be a family.
Welcome, Brendan. I'm Kim Vanetta, and I've lived here for 9 years now. And my husband and I moved from Seattle. I'm a lifetime Washingtonian. I grew up in Maple Valley, so not far away either. I am a career educator. I now work in staff development in Seattle Public Schools. And my husband and I moved here from Seattle. What wooed us to the city when we were looking at the plot of land that would then become our home was the parks and the trails. It was kind of, and our proximity to the walkability of downtown. We could go to the library and the grocery store and the produce stand without ever getting in our car. And it felt like the city still for us in this very small place. And we have not been disappointed. So we're very glad you're here to help support our parks and trails.
And hi, I'm Connie Forsberg. Nice to meet you. I have lived in Newcastle for just a little over a year. So I'm originally from Kansas City. I moved to Seattle in 2013 for grad school and got a job with Amazon afterwards and never went back home. But I, in my almost 10 years living in downtown Seattle, moved 8 times and was just really sick of moving, but also felt like I hadn't found my community in Seattle, and I really wanted some permanence. So last April, my fiance and I started looking for houses, and we'd never heard of Newcastle. But when we started touring this area, we just really loved it. We loved our house. We love our neighborhood. Have been exploring a lot, and I think it's like the perfect combination of accessibility to downtown. I was working in South Lake Union just up until last November. Now I work in the Bellevue office, which is also amazing for my commute time. But we've really enjoyed it. My fiance actually just bought a bike last Wednesday, so he biked down to Lake Porin Park from our house for the 4th of July, or fireworks over the lake celebration. And yeah, so I'm a newbie here, but I'm still exploring, still learning. I've only hiked on one of the local trails so far, but it was lovely. I know. We'll get there. So yeah, if you have any recommendations as you start exploring too, let me know, and I'm excited to work with you.
Field trip.
Hi, I'm Ed Flash, and welcome to Newcastle, Newcastle family. And welcome, or congrats on your new child as well. That's totally exciting. I have 3 kids of my own, and they all grew up in pretty much the Newcastle area, and went to school here. They're now all 3 of them on the East Coast. So long ways away. Last week we had all of them together for one night. It was kind of exciting. I've been a Newcastle resident for 17 years, almost 18 years. We love this community. It's a very welcoming, very friendly community. It's small and manageable, and yet it's close to the big city or big cities. So that makes it a really special place to live. And you get to know all the people around you and become really good friends with them and consider them to be your family to some extent. My passion is the arts. Even though I'm not an artist, I'm an accountant by trade, work for a healthcare company right now. But I just have a passion for everything related to the arts. And so about 7, 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago now, I got involved with the Newcastle Arts Council and grew it to the organization that it is today. We, on our calendar, have 60 events this year, believe it or not, and more if you include all of our board meetings and such. So we're very active in the community. We support not only the Newcastle community, but really consider us to be an arts organization for the surrounding area as well. So I'm excited to work with you on some art projects. We have money in the budget for a utility box this year, like the one we did at the corner of Newcastle Way and Coal Creek Parkway. Something in that vein or something similar to that. So looking forward to working with you on that project and getting that rolling. So again, welcome.
So Brandon, I'm Nathan. We met earlier. I've been in Newcastle 35 years, same house in Olympus. We basically live right across the street from Lake Bourne Park, so I am the eyes, ears, and see, click, fix guru for the city of Newcastle. I literally walk the city every day, and I see something, I put it on see, click, fix if it needs to be fixed, if it needs to be cleaned up, if it needs to be eradicated or whatever it is. I think if you talk to Jeff Bronze, he'll say, oh yeah, he's submitted just a few of them. We have 2 grown daughters. I've been retired now 8 years, and when I retired, I said I need to do something with my time, so volunteering for the city of Newcastle is a passion. President of our homeowners association right over the street in Olympus, and I work at the golf course at Newcastle a couple days a week, so play a lot of golf. And welcome.
All right, I think the first thing I learned here was was a little bit too close to the mic, so I'm going to sit back. Watching all you pros now, I'll sit back a little bit further from the mic here. But thank you all so much for the introductions. Yeah, there we go, something like that. It's great to meet all of you, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with you guys with anything park and trail related. So to kick things off, I am picking up, obviously, where Dobby left off here. I know it sounds like I'm filling some pretty big shoes. I know Dobby was, from what I've heard, pretty well liked, obviously in Newcastle, but especially with you all. So I want to pick up pick up where he left off here with first the naming of a couple of the parks we have. So I put a couple of the, or I put a sheet on each of your guys's, in front of each of you before you got in here with a couple of the names we're gonna run over, a couple of the parks that we can review tonight. One being the Heapstra development. So I'll just read the quick park and trail description here. I will preface all of this with Davi, where this left off was Davi had, during Newcastle Days last year, reached out, had a little booth, or was at the city booth, as I understand it, polling names or just taking recommendations from folks. So the names that you do see on the piece of paper there are recommended names from the community. And also my intent tonight is to try and hammer out a name for the Heemstra development that we can recommend and propose to the council. So without further ado, the Heemstra development near 83rd Street and 116th Ave Southeast. Quick description for it. The park is in the westernmost portion of the lot with a play structure, looping paved trail surrounding the playground connecting to a nature trail that takes users into Renton. Some key natural elements here include a steep hillside, woodland trails, and potential views of Lake Washington. Lastly, the park and its structures will be ADA accessible with thoughtfully selected play components as well as picnic shelter. The landscape supporting the park will also integrate stormwater capture into the park's frontage, providing more open space for local residents. This will be recommended to the council, whatever we decide today. And the three recommendations we got from the community members are the Hillside Park, Gene Garber Park, and Creekside Park. These aren't what we have to go with, but if there's anything that's sticking out to you all, that would be great, and we can recommend that one. But if there's something else that you had in mind, then we could recommend something else. But just wanted to throw it out there so we can get something across the line here.
Can I ask who Jean Garber is?
I think some of you probably know better than I do, but my understanding was that she was a previous mayor.
She was actually one of the first mayors of Newcastle. I think Ron Todd was our, no? Do you know more, Carol? Would you like to? I can tell you she lived in our neighborhood in Olympus her entire life, that I know her, so it was over 30 years. Yeah.
I think Jean Garber was on the city council. Carol Simpson from Vineyards was on the city council for 12 years, 3 terms, and loved the city, served the city really well. Was on the waste committee and she's an environmental person and knew all about EIS, worked in that, and saw her walking with her husband Clyde around the neighborhood a lot. So that would be a great honor. She passed away a couple of years ago. Her celebration of life was held in Lake Warren Park. And that's about all I know. I didn't know her really well, but I was on council when she was mayor. I could give you the date when I go home and look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Thank you.
So next steps.
Can I just, yeah, I mean, are we discussing the 3 potential names? My first visceral reaction to Creekside Park is we got enough creeks in Newcastle. And I think that would be, that would be the one that immediately makes me think, well, we have Coal Creek and May Creek and China Creek, and maybe we could be done with the creek.
Do we know if there was any logic behind these or did someone present anything like that?
Unfortunately, all I know is these were what were given to Davi during the Newcastle days. So outside of that, I don't know the context other than what I've heard from Gene Garber. I know it's on a hill, so hillside. I guess someone thought a hillside more as like a because it's like a physical feature, right? So it gives it a little bit more of a place, knowing that it's on the hill. Would be my thinking, similar to Creekside. Yeah, that's as far as I know.
Mayor Clark?
Thank you. Interesting that you talk about park names. We had an email to the council maybe a month or 2 months ago. A person said, hey, I want to name this park it was in the Wintry neighborhood. I want to name it, and I forget the guy's name. And I said, well, let me find. He said, what's the process? And I said, I don't have no idea. Let's find out. So I talked with the city manager, and it turns out we have no formal process for naming parks. So that I am aware of. I mean, so anyway, we told the person, go back, collect some neighborhood support, because we don't know the person you're suggesting, and we have no objection, but we don't know anything about it. So find out, give us a biography, and get some neighbors to say, yeah, we like this too, and that's how we want it forward. But if you know of a formal, it sounds like you're shaking your head like you know of a formal procedure for naming parks. And I'm not objecting to any of the names that were suggested. I'm just saying, if there is nothing, you'd be setting a precedent, and we'd like to maybe make some procedure for that.
So I actually searched the city records months ago, and I actually found verbiage that talks about a process. If I had known we were going to be doing a naming thing tonight, I didn't see it. Specifically, it just said Heemstra Development Park, but I didn't see anything about a naming, so I didn't come prepared. I have that document at home.
Please share it or
Yeah.
email it to myself and the city manager of the council, and yeah, that's great if we already have something, it'd be nice. Thank you.
So it's a process that states that the CAC makes a recommendation based on community input, and the recommendation goes to council. But as to what goes into the name, like what the parameters are, there's no, you're kind of both right. There's no descriptors on how to choose a name. It must be named after a person that has lived in Newcastle. There are no descriptors like that. The only process is what Nathan is describing, that CAC makes recommendation based on community input. The recommendation goes to council. Council ultimately makes the decision. Does that make sense? Okay.
So one thing I was wondering is, how do we elicit community input? Davi was saying we could do it at Newcastle Days, which was great, but you have a very limited ability to get information from people, I think, in that venue. And I was hoping that maybe we could do a email blast, a community survey, something to get the feedback from the community and actually get what people like as a name. And then I think we would have a much larger list. And then we could also see where there's commonalities. I mean, there may be several people that come back with all the same name, and that would make our job a little easier to see what the community likes. Being that I've never done this before, it's in, I think almost every one of us is in that same boat. It's a very new process. We want to make sure that we present to council a thorough list of the best recommendations for the city. Kim?
What's the timeline for naming?
I don't know of any specific timeline now. I know, as far other than sooner rather than later, I know the Heemstra development is. We have a meeting tomorrow to go over some more of the plans, and the plans are definitely getting close to being finalized, as far as I understand. And so, I think, yeah. Sooner rather than later, I guess is the gist, yeah. But no specific timeline.
Didn't know if we were ordering signs tomorrow or not.
No.
Okay.
So next steps.
I mean, I think I've said this before so we know that these came from Newcastle Days.
Correct.
So, we have a specific N, people that attended Newcastle Days who maybe swung by the city booth may have provided input on this. That's who provided input. So if we want to have broader input, we might solicit from the community. But I wonder if you would, do you leave it completely open-ended? And what does that look like? And what is the potential pitfall? Or do you provide a number of choices and get feedback based on those limited number of choices?
What have we done in the past? What have previous commissions, what was the last park we named, and what process did they go through? And are there folks that we could reach out to and maybe see what they did? What was the last park we named?
I don't know the answer to that question. If you do, you can. The only thing I would add to this, though, is that I do think like this could be, like there could be a full campaign around this, and there's like some sort of announcement to Newcastle, we're doing this, we want your ideas, and then you're right, we'd have to like funnel them down somehow and maybe vote.
Yeah, you can't give people a choice that isn't actually a choice.
Yeah, so maybe, and especially just like in lieu of speed, we could do like a little simpler would be voting maybe between the two. Like if we're gonna roll out Creekside, could we just have some sort of poll on the Newcastle Facebook page or social media somehow of like who likes Hillside Park or Gene Garber Park more, and that could be a quick way to do this one. But then maybe it'd be worth this group kind of like on the side talking about like some formality in the future of how we'd want to do this. I could just imagine this having like quite a long lead time if we wanted to do a full campaign. And like that could take months, and I don't think we have months. So maybe just, I don't know, that's my 2 cents.
Not to put you in a tough spot, but I remember we did talk to Davi about this before last, it was probably in the middle of last summer, about the whole process, and it kind of stopped at Newcastle Days with his gathering feedback. And then since then, of course, nothing's really been done till today. So we do want to help expedite it, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we've got the right community feedback that we're supposed to gather.
Are we talking a month, 2 months? I mean, what's sooner as opposed to later?
I would say within a month. Yeah. This was brought up to me within the 3 weeks that I've been here, just to try and bring it to a head. As you mentioned, it sounds like it last was discussed at least here approximately a year ago. So things have developed since then, and I know that they want to get a name hammered down. And I think the role here is just trying to figure out what you all would recommend for the council to approve. So this isn't necessarily saying, if I'm understanding it correctly, this isn't necessarily saying this is what it is going to be. It's just basing it off of, I know there's only 3, but basing off of the 3 that we got from the Newcastle Days, of those 3, which do you all recommend to the council?
Does the community itself have what's the Heemster development going to be called when Heemster is gone? Like I live in the trails.
I don't know.
You live in Olympus.
I think it's Parkside May Creek, or does
Okay.
that sound familiar?
Yeah, that does sound familiar.
Because I think the majority, and I wish we had a list of all the Newcastle parks right now, so you have them? You want to just go through
Yeah,
them?
I'll give you a highlight. I was gonna try to name them by heart, but, so of course, Lake Bourne, May Creek Park, Wind Tree Park, Little Rhodey Park, Madison Lane, Newcastle Highlands Forest Park, Donegal Park, Tralee Park, there's Redmond Park. Hold on. That one's in Renton. Glen Eagles Park. Hazelwood. We got Donegal. That might be the end of it. Oh, Heritage Morgan, the plastic park, yes, up by the elementary school. Thank you. And there's one more that might just be, there's Heritage, or Highlands Heritage, and I think there's just Highlands Park. I'm trying to map them out in my brain. Those are the only ones I'm recalling, and nothing else is pulling up immediately. Redmond, did I say Redmond? Okay, yep. So it seems like we kind of have a mix of, like, what's Glen Eagles? But we have a mix of things that are names and things that are locations and things that are neighborhoods.
Glen Eagle might refer to a part, I would assume that's in the Highlands. Not the Highlands, the reserve, and it might refer
is the
to a section of that. Like Olympus is the vineyard, and then
yes.
regular Olympus.
Yes, you might be.
Well, I called it regular.
Yeah.
So Brent, if I heard you correctly, what you're really looking for is, of these three names, what is the opinion of this commission?
Correct.
So what I'd like to do is, can we get some paper? Each of you,
In your drawers? Oh, in our drawers. Post it up?
I don't see, or Post-its? Everybody write down a name of the three that you would like, pass them down, and I will,
Okay, I would like to ask one more time, please. What's the neighborhood going to be called? And I'm sorry, I should know this from driving by, but.
We believe it's Parkside. Let me double check, see if I can find it real quick.
Talent, thank you.
It's Parkside at May Creek.
Do we need to sign this?
I have 4.
En route.
Currently have a tie until
It's like Survivor.
Hillside Park.
Okay, Hillside Park it is.
As the recommendation.
As the recommendation,
Yes.
yes.
Do we need to do anything formal?
You're not a legislative body, but you're welcome to take a vote if you would feel like that makes it more official, but simply noting that it's a recommendation is fine.
And then the recommendation comes from you to council with the name? Is that how it?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. And then next, we'll jump down to what's listed there is the Lee property development, also known as the Lee Bima property development. And this one is actually will be named by the developer. However, we can provide the developer a recommendation. So if they're floundering for a name or wanted some sort of input from the community / you all, then this would be our opportunity to present something to them. So I'll give a quick description again, and then there's 4 names again from Newcastle Days that Davi got about a little less than a year ago. All right, this historical park will provide a glimpse into the life of Old Newcastle through 2 historic buildings placed within the park. The focus of the park will be to highlight the rich history of the city. In addition to historical signage and structures, a history trail will connect into the larger development, providing opportunities to learn more about the mining history throughout the city and its regional and national importance. Those names are the Lee Bima Heritage Park, Coal Mine Homestead, Adriana Bima Park, and Old Newcastle Heritage Park.
Does this one have a longer lead time before we can share our recommendation?
Similar lead time. But again, this is going to the developer, and it's ultimately up to the developer. So it's just our recommendation, or sorry, your recommendation.
Can I just ask, just kind of as a side, why does the developer get to decide on this one but not on the other one? Does anybody know?
I can dive in and try and find out here, but I believe it's just based off of the square footage of the area. Since it's a larger area that they're developing, they have the rights to do it.
Thank you.
I really like the idea, no matter what the name is, to include the word heritage in the name, because I think this is a key component of this park. It is a key component of our city. And it is something, I like to travel to other places, and I really love to visit other parks and places of interest in those places. And heritage would be a word that would grab my interest if I was traveling from another area or was traveling to Newcastle specifically to see the coal mining history pieces that are available. And so that, if you Google, would bring up, be a search term that would help people land in the right place.
I wonder, is there any, in your next meeting with the Lee Property Development Group, would it be worth raising the idea to them that we could do like a campaign with the community to source ideas for names? I do think that could be almost like it gives exposure, awareness that something's coming. I do think there's a lot of benefits to doing that, but it comes with the trade-off of it takes some time to organize it. So maybe not even for this one specifically, but as we're having this conversation about what we could do in the future, it's as these conversations happen in the future, just like maybe give them a heads up that when it comes to park naming, this is a really engaged community that likes to give input. And so we could plant that seed early on in conversations, either with this group or in the future, of like, hey, if this sounds fun, if it seems like it could be a good even marketing opportunity for them, that we could support them in that. And maybe just, I don't know, I'm assuming you're the one that would have that conversation, but I don't know, of a way for us to do that, because it sounds like it's something we want to do and we wish we could. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
But in the meantime, so if you guys would all get your paper out and select which one of the 4 names, pass them down.
Lee is the property owner, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Lee is the property owner. Bima is the historical homestead.
Correct.
Correct.
And Ariana Bima, I assume, was the female head of household at the Bima homestead? What do we know about
I don't know for sure.
Ariana?
is it possible to throw out another version?
Sure.
And that is when I look at the last one, Old Newcastle Heritage Park. I almost think there's two words there that are redundant, old and heritage.
Yeah.
And so as a fifth one, can we just do Newcastle Heritage Park? It's an option.
I do like the Newcastle Heritage idea. How many other, do we have other parks named Heritage though? Don't we have other?
Yes. What's it, Heritage Morgan up on the plastic park. It's up by Newcastle Elementary. It's all plastic play equipment.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. That's right.
I like heritage in there, but, and I recognize Kim's feedback on that, but it's almost seems like everything's Heritage Park. Or lots of things are Heritage Park.
Historical park?
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's the right term, but
Brendan, are you okay if we present them with a fifth option?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's your all recommendation.
So write down what you like, pass it down, and we'll have a discussion.
If I could remind commissioners to please use the mic when you're speaking, that would be fabulous.
Is there, I'm so sorry that I don't know this, but I've never been onto that property. Is there decommissioned mine, is there decommissioned mine activity there?
Yes. Yes, there is.
Thank you.
Newcastle Historical Park.
Great, thank you. Okay, that's all I had for the park names. Lastly, I wanted to just open the floor to you guys for anything parks or trails related you wanted me to try and hunt down, jump on, anything that comes to mind right now. Feedback, just so as I go back into my cubicle over there, I can start hunting down stuff for you all. Just open.
What's the latest on is it Hill? What's the park by your house? The Hill?
The Hazelwood Park,
Hazelwood,
the one
thank
with
you.
the boardwalk.
Yeah, thank you.
The last I saw, and that is one of the priorities I'm going to be jumping into here, is getting some, putting out a request for bids from contractors. Honestly, it's something I need to dive into a little bit more, so I'll be getting in that probably next week.
I have a follow-up question regarding that park. Do you have a schedule or know of a schedule that like the Public Works or maintenance team goes and like walks that park? Because I am concerned about at some point needing to close it because it's a liability.
No schedule that I'm aware of now. I can take a walk next week. I did look at it about a month ago prior to actually starting the role here. So I do know what you mean about it getting a little dilapidated there. Yeah, so to answer your question, no, not that I know of, but something I'll definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's some sort of regular check-in so that if it reaches a point where it would be like blatantly unsafe for people to pass through, that we do something ahead of that happening. It's still fine for now, especially because it's summer and the water doesn't come up over the boardwalk right now, but I just want to make sure there's a regular check-in process since getting it redone may take a while.
Okay.
All right, I will check in on Hazelwood. Again, as I mentioned, it's at the top of my list. Yeah, please, as we move forward, if you guys have nothing else, feel free to reach out to me at any time via email or phone call. Happy to chat. Thanks a lot.
And please let us know when you talk to the developer if they're okay with a fifth option recommendation.
Will do.
That'd be great. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 8.2 fireworks on the lake. Shally.
So, I mean, I have to echo what Nathan said. Amy, you did an amazing, amazing job, you and the whole crew. But just you being so cool and collected really helped the volunteers stay cool as well. So thank you. I thought the tent location was perfect. I think it allowed us to see like the park better. It gave us a better view of the lost kids that were there. And I think it just worked out really well. So whoever's idea that was perfect. So thank you. The Wi-Fi was working really well. So whatever you did there, Amy, it was awesome.
The Arts Council had the same experience with the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we really had no issues. That was good. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you.
And then thank you to all of you for your input on the music. I thought that was really fun. I don't really have anything else except I thought it went really well.
Please open to commissioners if there's any feedback that you have, areas for improvement, ideas that you have. This is a great time to do that, or you're welcome to send those comments to me via email.
So I'll send them to you via email, but I would like to review them also, just as a quick, decomp, so it's all fresh in our minds. And the first thing I'm talking about is something I had to actually talk to Connor about. My wife and I were walking our daughter's dogs on July the 4th, and we watched a procession of 30, 40, 50 cars going into Lake Bourne Park between 7 and 9 p.m. They thought the 4th of July fireworks was on the 4th of July. So Connor, I think, agreed with me. If we put up an A-frame at the park entrance 2 weeks prior that says on Saturday, July, whatever, we will be having fireworks at the lake. And I think that'll help to alleviate people getting confused with the 4th of July versus fireworks on the lake. One thing I did notice when we had the first lost little girl was when announcements were being made at the stage, you could not hear at all at the south end of the park. So don't know if we can add some type of speaker system back there, but if parents were sitting on the hillside behind the booths or even at the booths, you could not hear. I did get feedback from another maintenance worker that they would have liked to have signage a week in advance that the boardwalk would be closed. And so the east end of the boardwalk to let people know, because a lot of people thought they could cut through, walk to the park, and then they found that the boardwalk was closed, and we got some feedback about that. We had a Newcastle resident on social media the morning after. She and her family went over to the park and cleaned it up. And I thought that was amazing, but how can we take that to the next step and actually have a volunteer event the following morning? Because we could have gotten a lot more cleaned up. But this woman did a fantastic job, put some lost and found stuff at the art poetry board, but I just thought, and a lot of us commissioners said thank you, liked her post. But I think we could take it a step further and get some volunteers next year. I'll be out there with my little picker. Again, I really want us to get a volunteer dedicated sign for the city booth when we're there, so that people, as they're walking by, see a sign that says, we need volunteers and a place to sign up, because I think that'll really help us to advertise and promote it. And then I was at the park about 2 o'clock on Saturday, and people were already starting to come and secure areas. I thought next year, if we could at least use yellow tape around the perimeter where the booths are going to go and the food trucks, that people would know this is blocked off. They can't use those areas. Fortunately, we didn't have to, I think, approach any of the public in the park to say, I'm sorry, you can't be here. Although I did talk to the people that had set up at 2:30 in the afternoon. They were very, very kind to move, but they wanted to get in the shade anyway, so they moved. And that's all the notes I have. Anybody else have anything?
I just wanted to comment on the cleanup issue as well. As I was walking out that night, I thought, oh man, this is going to be a mess in the morning. And I used to work for a major organization that sponsored gasworks, fireworks, and we always had a huge volunteer event the following morning. So I think it would be really great to at least attempt to organize one of those. And bring our own trash bags and stuff like that, because I can only imagine the trash cans at the park were absolutely full.
I was not able to attend on the 6th, unfortunately. I was out of town. But I did, and I heard it was fabulous, so thank you. One of my wonderings, based on what I heard in community feedback prior to the event, was a little bit of struggle with political will and understanding why the fireworks were on the 6th. And so a wonder that I have is, can there be an explanation from the city for the why? So to help people understand why it is no longer on the 4th, because there were people that have lived here for a very long time that said this was originally an agreement, which has long expired, but it was an agreement when the fireworks were banned we're for city and King County banning fireworks, but we'll do the display, right? So people are feeling a little bit of political ill will because that is no longer the establishment. We just need to communicate, right? I think most people will agree if we tell them we have concerns about the 4th because of the cost and because of public safety. They can understand that. They just need to know that, the rationale. So if that rationale could be proposed, and then my husband and I were looking at the calendar for all of the upcoming, like if we follow a pattern of, could we say it's the first Saturday in July? Could we say it's the second Saturday in July? And it creates all kinds of problems. Like at one point, it's on the 4th, the Saturday itself, and then it's on another weird day where the Saturday before is going to be a weird day, and the Saturday after is going to be a weird day. And so I wonder if, and there were people that were like, oh, it's been booming since the 1st, and now it's the 6th, and for all the different reasons that people who struggle with fireworks, it's a lot. So is there even an opportunity, if we talk about community input, for asking them, again, giving them parameters that are the parameters, it can't be on the 4th, would you prefer the Saturday before, July 3rd, which most people have the 4th off, or, then it's always on the 3rd, or the Saturday after? And so there could at least be some consistency, and we say that this is the way that we're celebrating, so people can plan around it, so people can be prepared if they want to travel away because they're one of those people who has a trauma experience with fireworks. They can plan for that. They can just know, and they can make their arrangements, or just, again, kind of building that political will behind it's not happening on the 4th anymore, and here's why. And we'd like to hear what would work for you, because we still want to do it.
That's all good feedback. Ultimately, everybody understands I don't set the dates. But I will certainly pass that feedback on. And this date was set because our Newcastle Police Chief and Public Works Director said this is the best option because of public safety. It really came down to public safety. We can get 2 police officers on the 4th of July or 4 police officers on a different day. And on the 4th of July, the police are able to do traffic safety and public safety enforcement. So it really came down to that. For my part, I can absolutely be better at telling that story. But as far as how that decision is made, I'll take this feedback back to the city manager and then go from there.
So just to confirm, the date is set by the city manager and the public works director. Is that accurate?
No. So it was this year because we had an events coordinator that was in place when all the planning for our summer events was being done. And then we had a issue with this person's employment.
That was last year.
That was last year?
For this year, the date was set by the city manager.
Missing a year?
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind.
With input primarily from Chief Kajihiro and the Public Works Director.
Okay. Yeah, the other detail that I would add to that is while we were working the city booth during the event, multiple people did come up and actually say that they really liked that it was on the Saturday and they were thanking us for doing it on a Saturday. So I think there's probably a lot of different thoughts around it. So I agree, just any way that we can communicate and learn from it is great. But I heard multiple people who are really happy about it too. So just wanted to provide some positivity. And then one question, Amy, do we know yet the count of how many attendees there were? Okay. Yeah, because I just think with the concern about the amount of attendees and safety, maybe next year we could also talk to the chief a little bit about is there a standard when it comes to a ratio of police officers to attendees at other events or something that we could also then communicate of we want 1 police officer per every 1,000 attendees or something like that, because that could also be something then for us to keep in mind for future events as well.
So for each of our large events, the fireworks event and Newcastle D's, the city prepares a crowd management plan in which we have to have a certain number of trained crowd managers. And we submit that to the Bellevue Fire Department in order to qualify for our outdoor permit assembly. And there's all sorts of guidelines we need to fulfill in order to get that permit. But furthermore, Chief Kajihiro prepares what's called an incident action plan. And that is all specifically addressed in that.
Is that available to the public or is that just for internal use? Do you know?
That I don't know. I would have to find out whether that would be appropriate for distribution.
The only other thing, I know we had some lighting issues at the end. So I don't know if that was like a Lake Bourne light pole issue, but could we get lights like on our tent? At least for us and the police, I think those are two important.
Yeah, lighting, more lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to thank Amy as well for all her efforts, and I think now she has a new wardrobe because she looked very comfortable in the orange vest. But I do want to ask a question. It seems like there were some fireworks that went off long after the show, and that happened a couple of years ago. I don't know if anybody remembers that. The show lasted about 5 minutes a couple of years ago, and then well after midnight, the rest were let off. So I just didn't know if we wanted to provide feedback, assuming to the folks that were doing that.
So that was actually a purposeful detonation. So there is always a chance at the end of any pyrotechnic show that there are a couple of shells that are undetonated that you can't leave undetonated. And so typically that happens almost immediately after the show ends and the crowd has cleared. Before then, we do the sweeps for embers, and then give the all clear to open the gates and move on from there. Because we had the lost child, who at the time we were not aware had left the park to go back to his car. We did not want to detonate those shells until we were certain that the child had been located and reunited with their parents. So that's why so long afterwards. But typically that would happen once the crowd has dissipated. And it's a circumstance that can happen, but a safety measure that needs to take place before we give the all clear. Have I answered your question? Okay.
Did any of the vendors run out of food? Do we know?
Choco Fruity sold out, but I am not aware that any other vendors ran out of food.
And we had heard last year, we weren't at the fireworks last year, that some of the food vendors ran out fairly early. Is that right?
Yeah, that was last year. And so I think that was something that we talked about a lot leading up to this, and there was quite a bit of improvement. So Amy's right, it was just the chocolate fruit vendor that ran out, but all of the other ones stayed till the end.
Because I saw lights on and people at there at 9 p.m. So I was very encouraged to see that people could still get food.
I am prompted to ask this, and I want to apologize for jumping ahead. This feedback thing, is this going to go out? Are we going to put this on social media or anything? Because it would be great to get some feedback from the public while the event is fresh in our minds.
So Allison's referring to, we had created a survey for feedback on our summer events. That was discussed in the previous meeting, a way for us to hear from the community about any ideas, suggestions, complaints about our events. So there was a QR code to fill this out during the fireworks on the lake celebration, and the QR code was at the city booth, but there were no responses. So I was going to bring it up when we got to the Newcastle section of the agenda, but I think we probably have some opportunities for additional placement to gather that feedback and ways to.
Yeah, I definitely jumped ahead there, so
that's okay.
I apologize, because I think it's a great idea.
Okay, anything else, Shelley, for fireworks?
No, that's it, but I just got a text message from my daughter. She said, could we get the food? I thought the food vendors were so good this year. Are there any other food vendors like that cater to more chicken nuggets and fries?
So we did try to bring in Dick's. Dick's is limited to 3-hour chunks. Certainly, if there's a preference for a type of cuisine, it would be helpful to have a recommendation. It's always helpful to have a vetted recommendation, but and likewise, if there's a certain type of cuisine, it would be helpful to know what that cuisine is that folks are looking for. So simply saying kid-friendly doesn't, that could be anything, so I could go after a chicken nugget or a chicken like that, that's more helpful to me.
One more comment, at the city booth, there were earplugs that were being handed out, and a lot of people really appreciated that. So if we could do that again next year, that would be great.
That was your idea, that was Shali's idea to get the earplugs.
Okay, moving on to 8.3, concerts in the park. Vice Chair Flash.
Yeah, so not a huge amount to do here. Excited that we're doing 4 concerts again this year, starting on the 17th, and then the 24th, 31st, and the 7th of August. We are having a city booth as well on those nights, and we need people to staff those city booths. So I did send around a sign-up sheet, so if each of you could, if you're available, sign up to be at the city booth during the concerts. There's just 2 shifts, an hour each for each concert. So that was all I had, was just a request for people to sign up to volunteer at the booth.
And 3 commissioners have already signed up.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, I actually wonder if this is a good time then to discuss the survey, because we were going to use this for the concerts as well as Newcastle Days. So welcome any feedback from the commission on if there should be any revision or addition of questions in the survey. But then also I would love to get feedback on where we could post the QR code. So I think a learning from the fireworks was that we had a QR code just at the city booth. But when you walk up to the city booth, you're engaging, you're talking, and there's actually quite a few different QR codes there about signing up for our newsletters, signing up for social media. And so this was just one of 4, I think, QR codes sitting there, and we did not get any responses. So welcome any thoughts on like maybe additional places we could post that, either physically at the event or on social media channels as well.
I don't want to add too more, make it too long, but is it worthwhile asking how they found out about the event? So then we can figure out how we want to promote things going forward.
Yeah, case in point, I think it was July 6th or July 4th, and people are asking, are there fireworks? What's happening? Who's the vendors? So just finding out where people are getting their information, I think could really be informative for us in our marketing strategy.
I think the first question shouldn't be any suggestions. I think, did you enjoy what you participated in tonight would be great. I've also found that if surveys are too long, people are less apt to do them. So I'd like to see this maybe get cut to 1 page.
I think the good news about it, though, is it's a lot of radio buttons, which don't give people the same survey fatigue that an extended answer does. So I would say we're a little bit safer with that. And I agree with moving the suggestions down. And I also would like to reframe that question. So instead of do you have any suggestions, a more open question is what are some suggestions? So assuming that you have suggestions, what are some suggestions for us to improve future events?
Yeah, you could almost move it down to number 9 and get rid of number 9.
Mm-hmm.
Also, is there a way to make it obvious that some of the questions are optional?
Yes.
Cool, because then if I don't want to give suggestions and I know that it's optional, I go, oh, thank God, skip that question. And then just fill out, instead of just being like, oh, just kidding, I'm not doing the survey at all because I don't have any suggestions.
So then the other thing I wonder about is, like you'd mentioned that you got a lot of feedback that fireworks, they really liked having fireworks on the Saturday. But of course they did because they were there at fireworks on a Saturday. And so I would wonder, is there a way that we could provide this to external audience, for people who aren't there? Like, I think it's important to know for our summer concerts why people aren't there. As much as it is important to get feedback from the people who are there for any of our city events. Does this not appeal to you? You know, I have neighbors when I'm rallying the neighborhood to walk down to the park with me that are like, meh, that's not my style of music, and they'll never go, and they would never then have an opportunity to fill out this feedback form to say, I don't like your music selection. And so, and they just say it to my face. So I think thinking of ways that we could use this, whether it's in the newsletter or some other avenue where we have a broader reach. And we would obviously want to modify this slightly, but like it could branch. Microsoft Forms is great at that. And start with, have you ever attended a Newcastle event? And then radio buttons for the yes, you know, what they have attended maybe. And, you know, what would you like to see? Like we ask about the music or what other types of events. And, you know, it could be modified slightly because it's important to know who's not there and why.
And maybe posting it on the socials and in the newsletter right after the event is a good idea, so you can get immediate feedback right after, but also that you would be reaching people, some people who didn't come.
One thing I noticed was several people commented about how fun it was or how great it was, whatever, immediately after, and the city of Newcastle said thank you. I wonder if it would be reasonable to, in those responses, put a link to help us out for future events, complete the survey, and attach a link to it that could draw people who were obviously reading that post, but that either agreed with, yes, it was fun, or, you know what, I didn't think it was that great, or I didn't like the idea, whatever. Give them an immediate click spot to go in and do something, say something. Again, I have no idea if that would be super labor intensive for whoever is the city of Newcastle, but yeah.
It's, depending on where it is, we actually may be violating our own social media policy of not posting links and comments, but we could take the spirit of that and find an appropriate way to engage with the commenters.
Yeah, and Microsoft Forms is very adaptable for branching so that it could be that one survey meets all the needs based on how the survey is designed.
And could we add to the end of the survey, are you interested in volunteering at any of our events, and give them a place to put their email?
Yeah.
Catch them anywhere and everywhere we can.
Connie, you did a very, very nice job on this, and I honestly did not know that's what that QR code did when we were at the city booth.
Even that is good feedback, because I think it's fair that not everyone will know what a QR code does. So maybe we can think about that a little bit more too, but thank you.
That reminds me, we could find a way to post a sign, a sandwich board, a sign, a yard sign, next to the food vendors so people could do it while they're standing in line. Any place people are standing in line, if you give them a good thing to do, that you'll get more data. So if there's lines for the bathrooms, if there's lines for food, right? Like anywhere you might be waiting, getting out of the parking lot, whatever. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I think we can definitely do that. I think the only call out then would be for our volunteers at that event. We would ask for you to post those and take them down afterwards. So we can all just talk about that when we know who's volunteering for what event. But I think that's a great idea.
Any more feedback for Connie? Okay.
Put them on the inside doors of the honey buckets.
Do not get
I
your
don't
phone out in the honey
volunteer
bucket.
to distribute all of them.
Christian, I was thinking that, but I'm glad you said it. Okay. Okay, moving on. 8.4, Newcastle Days. Amy.
Alrighty, so this is me. I'm speaking on behalf of our subcommittee here. Connie and Christian and myself have been working, and we do have an upcoming meeting on July 22nd. So some highlights as to where we are in our Newcastle Days planning. The activities, all the big ones are booked, as you know, and I am happy to report we have booked our ponies. We have the ponies. So I know that was we were anxious about getting our ponies, but the ponies are back. So we will have Ponies and Petting Zoo opening from 11:30 to 4:30. So we extended it by an hour to give more time for the children's activities. And then the inflatables will open from 12 to 5. And the Scouts Carnival games we have also from 12 to 5 because they do the presentation of the colors at the opening ceremonies. We want to give them some time to be able to get over, but they'll open when they open. So we've staggered out with the opening of some of the kids' activities so that people can kind of flow in and flow out. So I'd like to also tell you some really great news about our community booths. So the deadline for community booths is July 19th. And I have not done any call for booths like on social media as we typically do, apply for vendor booths. This has all happened organically by setting up the website on newcastlewa.gov and then also setting up the Facebook event with the short links. We're going to have to turn people down. So we have 20 sponsors who, as part of their sponsorship, are guaranteed a spot, and they want those spots. Regional Animal Services of King County will also host a booth with a pet watering station. So we have met that need. And as of about 6 o'clock this evening, we have 32 booth applications. 13 of those are business general, 12 of those are art handcraft, and 7 of those are nonprofits. The majority of them are local or immediate region nonprofits, businesses, artists, and handcrafters. So the subcommittee, when it meets on July 22nd, will be culling that list to what we can accommodate in the space. I did meet with Connor Simonson this morning to try to look at the layout of the park and find ways that we can create, because we do have so many art handcrafters and the commission really wants to have an art fairish area that is not on the tennis courts, how can we shift the layout to accommodate that and accommodate the folks that we would like to see participate in community booths. So if you know of a business, nonprofit, or handcrafter, artisan who would like to participate, they should really get their application in ASAP, because we're probably going to have a waiting list, which is good news.
Did you and Connor come up with what you think is a max number?
Well, because we're shifting the layout, we have to actually get boots on the ground and measure that out and see how that's going to work, make sure the space is flat. So no, we do not have that number yet, but we will have that number before July 22nd. Good question. The car show is moving along. The coordinators, our volunteer coordinators, are promoting the show, and we already have 8 registrations, which is pretty amazing. We are encouraging people to register ahead of time because it really helps with logistics in the park. So we're excited to see registrations already because, yeah, it's just great news. Usually people wait until the last week, so to have that commitment ahead of time is really helpful. The stage, we are still putting this together. We had some very exciting news that King County Library Services Newcastle, our Newcastle Library, has some money to be able to fund some musical performances. So Vicki Heck sent over some suggested musical performers from For Culture that would qualify for the money that KCLS Newcastle would sponsor. And Connie, Christian, and I will take a look at those, but they're primarily music acts. Most of the folks who applied through the community to be on stage are dance. So we want to balance that, dance and music. Moving on did you have a question?
Well, I have a comment. One of the things that someone mentioned or gave feedback about a few years ago for a potential stage act was a sing-along. And so if any of the library artists have any possibility to do like a Disney sing-along, you know, like the songs we all know and love, I think that would be a popular idea.
Do you know if the library's applying for grants for those artists? Because if they're on For Culture's prescribed list, then they may be able to get matching funding.
You would have to ask Vicki.
Okay.
She did not say how the money was coming.
Okay.
Alrighty, food. We also sent out an open process, an open call for food vendors. We have 12 applicants plus Jersey Mike's and DIYT as sponsors will be food vendors. And we're still getting interest for food vendors. One thing that is different this year, we are charging them for the space. To use the space because there is a demand. If you would like to vend our event, then we would like you to make that financial commitment. Let's see, logistics. I did mention that we're working on finding more space for booths. Oh, I'm sorry, Kim, I'm moving really
That's
quickly.
okay, I love it. Do you have a coffee vendor?
No, not yet.
Have you?
I'm getting my own Nespresso machine and I'm bringing it.
Have you, whoever was here with, what was it? When was the coffee thing over there? Oh, it was PSC's, when PSC sponsored stuff. Have we invited them or are they just expected to, or excuse me, do they need to request a spot? In other words, how can I remind them if you just want to come to Newcastle Days, get it done?
So I do know that there is interest in having a coffee vendor. So once the deadline has come and I look at the variety of food and vendors and who has reviews, who we've worked with before, and narrow it down, if there is not a coffee vendor amongst them, I will go out and recruit a coffee vendor. So we will do everything we can to get a coffee vendor. We have talked with Hazen Boosters about hosting coffee and donuts where they have the space in the core show and they run the booth themselves and then it becomes a fundraiser for the boosters. So we will have that, but it's not an espresso. So I know it's important to folks, at least for the morning, and a coffee cart doesn't take up a whole lot of space. Yeah.
I don't assume full human form without coffee, so it's also a public safety issue.
Noted. Alrighty, but if you do have coffee cart recommendations, I know some of you have sent me those already. Feel free to continue to do so. Okay, so logistics, as I mentioned, we're working on finding space for more booths because not only it fills out the event and we have the interest to be able to do so. And we did agree that we liked the layout at the fireworks where the city tent is shifted over. So the city tents would be, so the event tent, the city staff tent, I believe Adopt a Dream will have a tent. Those will all be shifted over with the food all along the edge of the park like they were for fireworks. And that actually was a recommendation that came out of Connie and Christian looking at last year's Newcastle Days map, that there were crossing of lines and it got very clustery in the way that it was laid out. So we tried this new layout of the fireworks and it sounds like it was really well done. So we're looking at repeating that. And then As I mentioned, our next subcommittee meeting is on Monday, the 22nd, and we'll be looking at the booths and narrowing down the selection of booths. Other questions about Newcastle Days planning at this point? All right, I'm just yay for ponies. I'm so glad we got the ponies. I'd never hear the end of it if we didn't get the ponies.
Well, I guess I will ask one question. So we're going to be working with Safeway to donate a cake for the birthday for Newcastle Days. Any options for flavor? The three of us had talked was a chocolate vanilla mix with just vanilla icing.
Raspberry filling because it's kind of that maroony red.
We can ask. I don't know how intricate they can get with us, but yeah. Everybody like a mix? Okay. And raspberry filling.
Safeway does do a better cream instead of a regular. It's a half whip, half frosting to make it less sweet, and it's a little fluffier. It's not their buttercream, it's better cream, if you're interested in that. The
So
secret item.
buttercream,
It's called better.
Better cream.
Better cream.
better cream.
Better. Better than butter.
Have we thought, Nathan, at all about the logistics of the cake experience at Newcastle Days? Like, would this be at the city booth? Will we have a separate table? How far are we in the planning of that type of thing?
So we haven't even talked about that. In 2019, we invited the previous mayors to join us, and we did a celebration and introduced them on the stage, and then they came off the stage, and we had a table set up right outside the stage, and there was a cake cutting. They all held the knife, and we took pictures, and
It was on plywood. I mean, it was a big.
it was big.
Okay, yeah, just curious if we need to get plywood, if we need to build something for this, you know.
So I've mapped 18 by 24 as a standard, and I've seen the pictures. I believe it was an 18 by 24 cake. Do you guys think it was bigger than that?
I think it was
It
multiple
was,
cakes.
it was, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Here, I was just looking at a picture of it.
Because that's
yeah. 19.
so here it is. You
So
think
for
that's-
our part,
I measured that. I measured that, and it measured out to 18 by 24.
It's
Just the one cake was all that was available? I mean, it was all that was there? There wasn't like extra, like another cake?
No, no,
regular-
that was it. We only had one cake. Costco made it for us.
Yeah, because I would just, like with the crowd management, if we're gonna announce free cake over here and there's hundreds of people that all get excited, like,
It didn't happen
It didn't happen like that.
last time.
so for the planning committee, when we do finalize the stage schedule, one of the placeholders is
Let me see what you-
the birthday celebration. So it will be at the stage.
18 by 24.
I don't know if that helps in terms of thinking about the logistics, but it'll be managed or primarily focused at the stage.
yes. Okay. Okay, so on the stage, we'd have a table, someone would bring over the cake.
It was on a table below the stage. So I don't know what kind of a celebration we're going to do as far as inviting the past mayors, inviting past council members that live in Olympus.
Or the vineyard?
That's,
Yeah, or the vineyard. But some way to celebrate, we'll figure that out. But the cake was down below at a table, so it was easier for us to cut the cake and then just hand out plates. And I forget who did all the cutting, but they were just little pieces that come. Yeah, and it went pretty fast, and the cake's gone, it's gone.
Christina,
So you guys think that's bigger than 18 by
Yeah,
24?
'cause look, it's the size of a table.
I remember it being on a piece of plywood, and we were wondering even how we were gonna get it. Is that the one where Sunny's cutting it? Oh, yeah, I think that is actually, if I had to guess, I think that's 4 Costco-sized
Yes.
cakes. They built just 4 of them and frosted them as one.
Okay.
Yeah,
You think it's 4?
I think it's 4, just by my calibrated eyeball,
Or Costco sheet cake.
which has a reputation in my household. I know. Yeah, doesn't that look?
Okay.
I think it's 4 sheet cakes.
Amy, is that all for Newcastle Days? Yes. Thank you. Let's move on to 8.5.
And see how many people are standing.
Christian, the 30th anniversary.
Hello again about the 30th anniversary. So I only have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about the 30th anniversary. Last time we talked about getting some info out to the businesses about how to do like a tie-in with the 30th anniversary. And when I was going back and like reviewing that, I realized that I needed to get more information on like, what do we want to get out to the businesses? Like, what do we want that email to look like, or if there's going to be any social media posts, like what need to be in them? And most importantly, if we're doing a handout, like what do we want? Like how do we want to tell the businesses, like, it's our 30th anniversary, you could do a cool tie-in. Here are some examples, like what are some examples, right? Like 30% off, right?
I had
Happy
a
hour or
flyer
whatever.
last year that was distributed to local businesses. It wasn't about an anniversary, but it was about like in the lead up to Newcastle Days, we will promote any like discounts or things that you're doing to celebrate Newcastle Days. And so we had Jersey Mike's, DIY tea, and the pizza place, Jet City
City.
Pizza, all did discounts leading up to Newcastle Days last year, and then we posted it on our social media and I think the newsletter as well. So I'm happy to share that draft with you because it could be just a good start and then make it a little more anniversary focused.
That would be great. That would be great, because the starting point is often my biggest stumbling block. And then just going back and kind of looking at how other places have celebrated anniversaries and things that have been done in the past here, and if we need to do anything else, like we've said, like we don't need to do anything else in terms of coming up with more ways to celebrate, but then I realized that we haven't talked about how is the honoring of the city's 30th anniversary like going to be formally recognized, right? And then I realized that isn't necessarily our job, that's kind of like the city council's job. But it is our job to make a recommendation to them about if they should do some sort of formal recognition for the 30th anniversary. So maybe we should talk about that.
What about with the cake? Could the people that we've recognized come up during the cake cutting and be involved in that? Somehow, just like looking back at the pictures from historical, it looks like there was like a group, maybe that was past mayors, but for this year, it could be our celebrated community members doing that.
And are we going to ask the council to like, at a September council meeting, formally recognize the 30th anniversary? Do we want to make that recommendation to them?
Tell me more about, as far as a formal recognition. I mean, we know when Newcastle was founded. We know how many years we've been a city. We are going to promote this like crazy. So when I hear formal, tell me more. I mean, when you say we should ask council, you mean just council to recognize that it's our 30th anniversary? We don't necessarily do that to talk about our personal birthdays to make it formal. I mean, it's my birthday, it's my
But it is
anniversary.
the city's birthday.
And it's the city's birthday.
Yeah.
So if we're wanting them to simply acknowledge that it's our birthday, yeah. If we think that's something we would like them to do, I think we can make that recommendation.
This is a bit of a sticky wicket because the formal way that most people, places do this is, God forbid, I don't want to say this word, they make a proclamation.
So,
And I think we've established that that's not going to happen here with this council. So is there a different way that they can find to formally recognize and call out like the rich history of the city? Like at one point, Newcastle was bigger than Seattle in population. The reason Seattle, not the entire reason, but a large reason that Seattle exists as it does today and grew so rapidly was because there was coal here. Like, and I don't know, it just feels like something that,
Well, and there are volunteers who are serving to preserve that history. I mean,
Yeah.
even by the fact that we had a discussion about the naming of a historical park, that, you know, this is an important part of our history and it's an important part of just acknowledging our existence as a city and our importance in this region.
What about this idea? What about those of us who would like to be involved, taking turns at a council meeting and reading something prepared, maybe chronological? I'll start out saying, I'd like to acknowledge 30 years of Newcastle, blah, 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 blah. And then Kim says, and blah, 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 more stuff. Where we don't exceed our 3 minutes and we give a little, just honor the city and the history and the volunteers who are working to keep it going and all the great community and all that.
I always like to say, how are we different from Kent? Because I think Newcastle is special, and we really need these opportunities to recognize what makes Newcastle special.
Yeah, Allison, I like your idea. I think if we want to, we could target the September meeting to do that. I'm not sure if that would be prior to or after Newcastle Days, but we could, if it is prior to, we could plug that we will be, celebrating at Newcastle Days as well. If it's post, we could just talk about that we had. But yeah, I think we could start a draft of the content that we would like to say, maybe on SharePoint or something. If it is about like historical references, where Newcastle has been leading up to where we're going, and go from there. I think that's a good idea.
If we were able to do it before, it would be a good opportunity to remind the members of City Council, as well as anybody in the audience, about the upcoming Newcastle Days and, some of the features, reminding/inviting people to be sure to be there to celebrate with all of us and with the community. Just in case people don't plan to go anyway.
There should be a meeting on September 3rd.
Then the subsequent meeting is actually going to be a town hall, and it is scheduled for Thursday, September 19th at Brisbane Middle School. So those of you who have been following city council meetings, this had been discussed, and as soon as the seating manager directed, I have booked Brisbane, and it is booked for the 19th.
So I like the idea. Who wants to drive it?
Are we talking about the idea of us going to a meeting and going through the history?
Well, somebody needs to create a SharePoint document, post it, elicit a request to commissioners like Ed did today for the concerts and say, you know, make sure you go in and fill in your ideas, and then somebody's got to correlate it, edit it. And then I love Allison's idea of coming to the September 3rd council meeting and doing public comment and have a place, and we could even get on the agenda if we feel it's that important, and be able to speak to it.
I would so I don't know that we have our best and final answer here, I'll say that. But I would be more, if, again, volunteers are doing the work, I would be more in favor of being on the agenda rather than having our time divided and cut by bells and whistles and having transitions between speakers and everything else that would cause the story to be diminished.
If we can get on the agenda, that would probably be the very best. Do we have to have somebody on council sponsor us? Or can we just say, we would like a spot on the agenda for the meeting?
So Carol can correct me if I'm incorrect, but there is a planning calendar. And then the city manager works with the mayor and deputy mayor on an agenda setting meeting.
So what if I were to send Scott and include Mayor Clark? Who else did you say? I'm sorry. The deputy mayor? Mayor and deputy mayor and Scott are in those agenda meetings?
I think you just don't, I think you have to ask to get it on the planning calendar, right? I might be off base. And then it's on the planning calendar for that date. And then they probably, it wouldn't hurt to remind them before their agenda meeting, right? You'd have to ask Scott when he's having a meeting with them for that, regarding that specific council meeting. So it could remind them that, like, but I think that's how it works.
I think I would first start by emailing the city clerk.
I'll email Jane. I unfortunately will not be in town September 3rd, so I would not be able to attend to help present. So
Well, and is that the way that we are hoping to
If
have
that's-
recognition? That is an option.
Because I think I was approaching it more of just like we would make a recommendation to the council that they do something formally to recognize the history and also the city's incorporation. It was incorporated on September 30th, so September 30th, 2024 is technically the birthday, the anniversary, but I think I'm glad I brought this up because obviously it bears discussion.
Well, I guess it's July. We have one more meeting in August to kind of wrap our head around this. So that's why I'm asking who wants to drive it. I can reach out to Jane to say, how do we get on the agenda for September 3rd? But in the meantime, we need to have, we got to move fast if you want something formally to be presented to council.
I'd be I'd be happy to put something together. My thought would be to first solicit input from the group here and do a little summary, and then have something that we could present to council or whomever's appropriate to present it to, in order to have some sort of a recommendation made or acknowledgement, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you, Allison. Okay, Christian, anything else on the 30th anniversary?
I don't have anything else at this time on that one.
Okay, nice job, thank you.
I have one thing. Amy, do you still need more folks for honorees, or are we good there?
I have not looked in the folder in anticipation of Friday, but I'm assuming there are 2 people in there ready to go for my newsletter on Friday. So I have a newsletter going out on Friday, and I typically honor 2 honorees. I have not gone into the folder to see if there are 2.
There are 2 people.
Okay,
There's,
great.
I think there's 3.
Terrific.
I'm still behind on,
Okay.
on reviewing
As long as
everything, but
there's
there's 2. So
As long as there's 2 for
great,
Friday,
now
I'm
I
good.
know. You've got to keep at least 2 in there in the hopper at any time.
2 in the hopper anytime. Well, like, after this newsletter, you do have a 3-week break because of the calendar.
That does remind me. No, we need to maybe just like circle back for 15 minutes at some point and just update the list and see where we're at with number of people sending it out, etc. So I will email you guys after this and we'll find a time that works for the 3 of us to revisit that. It doesn't need to take a long time.
Okay, thank you, Christian. Ed, 8.6 Third Spaces Project.
Yeah, so I'll be quick with this because I know we're running out of time, but before we do that, you need to extend the meeting since we're at 8 o'clock, or
Do I have everyone in favor of extending our meeting for another 20 minutes? All in
Yes.
favor? Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
meeting extended.
thanks. Okay, so what we wanted to do, and Amy and I were talking about this, is potentially solicit a volunteer to help gather some information around third spaces. And so we came up with a list a couple of meetings ago, but we were hoping to just brainstorm for a few minutes on things that we want to ask a volunteer to collect. So the data points basically to, so we can fill in a spreadsheet and have valuable data for us. So it's a brainstorming session, so if anyone wants to throw anything out there, we can keep a list of those and then evaluate that as we go forward. So does anybody have any suggestions?
I know we'd started the spreadsheet where we were filling in some of the information, so just off the top of my head, I remember we were thinking about like capacity, how many people could fit in a third space was one. And then I think indoor versus outdoor was another. And maybe like whether or not there's AV capability.
And power in general. Pricing.
What was that?
Pricing. Facilities like bathrooms.
If it's ADA accessible.
Water availability.
Parking.
I would think rental fees.
Probably also proximity to, like, downtown Newcastle.
Some way of tracking like amenities. I'm just thinking like when you rent something, if it's a big room, are there tables there? Do you have to bring your own? Right? If it's like the park shelter, is it just a roof? Or in the case of ours, right, they have picnic tables, right? So stuff like that.
Well, that opens up, do you have chairs? Do you have whiteboards? Do you have blackboards? Do you have?
When Kim was talking about Microsoft Forms branching so well, this is coming to mind because I was thinking, when you say outdoor, but then like a sub-question, like, is it covered or not covered? And if you answer yes, then that leads you to like a whole nother set of questions.
Yeah, like an Excel spreadsheet that can be, if I'm someone who's looking for a third space of our available places, if I can filter that spreadsheet to say, I want an outdoor event that has electricity, that also has parking and is ADA accessible.
Yeah.
And it would say what my options are so that I'm not swimming in a sea of 20 options that don't meet my needs.
Also, you don't have to read the entire Excel list.
Yeah. Any other ideas?
Anything else?
Anything else? Okay, nope. I'm
Okay.
good. Thank you.
I just want to make sure that the commission is comfortable with a volunteer taking this and researching it and filling it in. We have the volunteer identified. It's a student who is looking for summer volunteer hours.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Great.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Last thing on the agenda is additional public comment. Is there any additional public comment?
Carol Simpson, I'll be really quick. This is a commission, and I encourage you to use your motions and seconds and discussion of the motion and take a vote. You'll get a lot better feedback if you each speak to each idea that is a motion and be more efficient. I really appreciate Commissioner Lee's suggestion about going to council and talking about our city's history. You only have 4 council meetings, I was counting in my mind, before Newcastle Days. If you can't get on the agenda for the day before Newcastle Days, you can at least appoint one of each of you for the next 4 meetings to speak for 3 minutes. That's about 1 page, double-spaced, is about 3 minutes worth of commentary on the city history. And that's a good thing. Secondly, on your discussion of park naming, you approved the agenda. It's your agenda. Park naming wasn't on your agenda. The public needs to know what you're going to be talking about at this meeting. There was no park naming that I came across. It was just parks and trails, discussion of Heemstra development. There are a lot of people that would want to weigh in and talk to you about park naming. And instead of taking a straw poll and marking down on each ballot, you should have discussed each name that was proposed. And it came from Newcastle Days. That could be anybody walking through the park. They aren't necessarily Newcastle residents weighing on that. Now, the city owns over 100 pulse pads that they've used at town halls. It's very easy at a town hall to put up 4 selections and have people on a pulse pad say, which name do you like? It's also very appropriate for each of you to put ideas of your own in. That's why we have 7 Newcastle residents sitting here. So when you think about the Heemster property, if I were sitting in your chair, I'd remember it wasn't just the Heemster property where the owner liked to raise goats and sheep and little animals. And the mother and daughter went to my church, and the daughter was a friend of my son's from Hazelwood Elementary School. And then next door was what we all think of as the pony farm. And if you've lived here long enough, and I know Commissioner Lee would remember this because she's my good friend, you saw those Shetland ponies going up and down 116th, taking disabled children for rides. That's what they did. It was therapy. So there's some history on that Heemster property. Also, the pony farm always strung a Santa sleigh and reindeer across 2 trees at Christmas time. I always remember that property for that. It's too bad the trees are gone, it's too bad the ponies are gone, and the animals are gone, but maybe something in the park naming can celebrate that memory of what was there. And that's part of what I would hope would have gone on in your discussion as residents of Newcastle who really love and know this place. Because we don't know where these names came from. There wasn't anything in your agenda about park naming. They didn't research it. I'm not sure what's in your agenda about third places. But you can look at the parks as your primary function as your third place that this commission is commissioned to do. And as for a proclamation, I sent one out that came from the city, I can't remember the name, they did a 25th anniversary. We have a lot of stuff to put in our whereases about the city of Newcastle and why we're proud to be a city for 30 years. And there should be a proclamation. And that's the history you write should be posted on the city website, should go out in the newsletter. The proclamations should be posted on the city website anytime a city issues a proclamation honoring somebody, celebrating something, making people aware of domestic violence, things that the city has done proclamations in the past. That's what the city should be doing. There is a list of proclamations on the city records page. So if you go on to city records, not only will you see resolutions and meeting minutes and ordinances, you'll see proclamations. So, and if you have a minute, you all spoke about yourselves, and thank you very much. That was really great. I'll give you a quickie. I moved here in 1999 with my one son and my husband. We found this place. It was a great place. We really loved the house. We picked the lot. They built it. But before we could move in, we had to sell our house and live at Newport Crossing Apartments. So we had to move twice. My realtor, I just wanted to, are you kidding me? We have to move twice? But I lived downtown at Newport Crossing Apartments before I knew you could walk down 129th and get into the park. When they were just finishing building the restrooms, when the golf course was still under construction. So lived through a lot of this, walked a lot of the neighborhoods with my neighbors, enjoyed the city a lot, served on the Planning Commission for 8 years, served on the City Council for 12 years. I'm very proud of my 20 years of service to the city. I was a founding member of the Friends of the Newcastle Library. I personally submitted the 501c3 application to the IRS. I'm very proud of that. It doesn't take a lawyer, it's just somebody who follows instructions. So if you want somebody who will follow instructions, find me.
Thank you, Carol. All right, last thing on our agenda is our planning calendar. Our next CAC meeting is scheduled for August the 14th. And if there's nothing further, time is 8:13 and we are adjourned.